Hey guys, welcome back to the show. This is part 2 of Coexistence with Dr. Jenni and myself. And we hope you enjoyed the first part. And we are working now to upload a few more podcasts. So stay tuned in the future for more spiritual grind. Thank you once again for tuning in. And here's part 2 of Coexistence.
And coexist in a balanced way.
Yes, that's correct. You know, and the workplace is such a hot topic. For me, well, let's say for a lot of people, because we see it all the time. We hire eclectic people. We're very diverse in our jobs, and we actually are employers. We have 40-something employees right now, and we try to we just hire people for who they are, no matter what they are. And if we can coexist together as an employer, and not damage each other's value, then it's a win-win situation. And that's where, when you go in every day, if you devalue yourself, then you're giving up your spiritualism, and you shouldn't do that.
Yeah. And you're giving up your coexistence with yourself.
That's correct. Yeah. And when you do that, and you don't bring to the table who you are, then you're setting yourself up for failure and not being true to yourself.
Well, and it feels awful.
Yes.
If it causes it'll start to begin with I hate my job, or I'm resentful towards my job, and in all reality, it's not that. It's that you don't like the relationship that you've found yourself in with yourself.
Correct.
But then we displace it off onto the job rather than being able to kind of be accountable and look at ourselves and say, okay, what is really the deep-seated topic of this? Why all of a sudden do I not like where I'm at?
Right, yeah.
And because we've allowed ourselves to displace the emotions or the feelings about how we feel with ourselves, being upset that we negotiated or didn't negotiate some sort of boundary or compromise on something that was very, very important to us. And we're actually beating ourselves up for that and not coexisting with all of that inside of our own selves. And we displace it off onto, well, the company did it. The company has a rule about this. But the reality is that you accepted that in your negotiation, and being truly accountable is what keeps you balanced.
It's not the job's fault that you went into that negotiation devaluing yourself.
Right.
Because it's very crucial to stay true and make the playing field even.
Right.
And then you'll find out that your job throughout the day is much more pleasant.
Right.
Because you can be you.
Yeah.
You know, and I think another part of that is we get trained because of the judgment along the way to coexist in a way that we hide who we are. And, you know, hiding who you truly are is not being coexistent to yourself and not becoming, it's hindering the journey that you're on.
And so the conversation may be beneficial to go in this direction for just a half a second. So if you've already accepted a job and you find yourself in a job and you find yourself, because listen, being a human is sometimes it is challenging.
Agreed.
I would say the word I really want to say, but that would cause you to have to beat me.
I will beep you.
He's got his finger on the button ready. Sometimes being a human is hard as fuck. And it's hard. And so for those that already find themselves in a job and they are hating their job, tidbits of information that would help get them back to a place where they can at least tolerate the job until they can do something different.
Yes.
That might be key information of little tricks of the trade to help.
Okay.
Because there's times when every one of us comes to a day where it's like, oh my God, do I have to do this one more day?
I want to go back to bed.
Right.
I think what we need to elaborate on is what you can do when you find yourself in that situation.
Yeah, I agree.
And, I think one thing that I do every single day is I try to find that positive energy within my environment. Mm-hmm. When I go out, like we work with a bunch of seniors, and working with other seniors that we work with, they have so many different stories and their life. And sometimes just sitting down, listening to one of them will kind of feed you that positivity because they light up. Mm-hmm. And when they get opportunity that somebody's actually interested in them. And that's one step that I do is I find that positive energy in the workplace and try to replicate that.
Yeah.
I'm making up my own words now.
I love it.
And another thing that I do within the workplace is I try to find my solace. I'll spend 5 or 10 minutes a day. Not 5 or 10 times, but 5 or 10 minutes a day.
Depending on the day, it needs to be 5 or 10 times a day.
Yeah. Find that moment to where you can go close your office door or find a quiet place and sit down for a minute. Most jobs will give you, either an hour lunch break or 2 15-minute breaks. And on one of your 15-minute breaks, take that time and find yourself again.
Yeah.
Find a happy place.
Even if you just have seconds and you're in the bathroom.
Yes.
Take a few minutes in the bathroom, a few deep breaths, try to just kind of clear your mind for a minute. You can do some visualization of imagining that heavy kind of negative experience that you just had, or the energy floating away out with the breath and breathing in new clean energy just to kind of reinvigorate yourself to get you through the next 30 minutes, hour. Some days, honestly, it's like minute to minute.
Yeah.
And we're no different.
I agree.
We're not superhuman.
No.
We have those days just like anybody else does. I think for me, I do the same thing, but I do a few different techniques. The bathroom trick is one that I use. I'll try to, while I'm sitting in there, visualize a fun place in my mind, and I'll go there for a minute. I like to go to my little imaginary fairyland and be a fairy. So I'll take a minute to just travel there for a quick second, just to find that kind of childlike, giddy feeling inside of me. And then that nudges me through the next whatever time. I definitely carry my stones, my stone energies. They resonate with me. So I usually always have 1 or 2 in my pocket. I've got them sitting on my desk. They're everywhere. So.
Yes, they are.
And everybody fully is aware of my
weird
stoner habit, if you will. Stepping outside for me really helps.
Yeah.
Just taking a minute to go outside, breathe some fresh air. Just being outside of the building helps.
I understand.
So I do that a lot. And then sometimes, I get the privilege of working with my husband, my human, and
that's me.
I enjoy his energy. And so sometimes I'll just go sit in his office just to be in his energy, just to be around him, because that helps as well.
That's what she's doing when she sits in my office and looks at me like a lost puppy.
Yeah, it's like, help. So,
it's kind of funny.
Those are some of the techniques. Sometimes I will put on some music.
Yeah.
If I'm needing some sort of noise change, I'll put on a little bit of music in my office. If I'm, working on something, that'll help change my mood.
Clear your energy.
I think what I was wanting to do is go a little deeper for half a second.
Okay.
Like when you have that person that really tends to get on your last nerve, and that you really
You mean a coworker?
Yeah, like a coworker. And they always seem to be so negative. and you're trying really hard to stay in that high vibration, positive place. And lo and behold, here they come. So you have choices in that as well. If it's that they're coming to you because you're higher status and they've got to bring you information per the job, just because they bring you the information doesn't mean that you have to sit and linger. You get the information and then move on. And it's perfectly okay to, in a polite and professional way, take the information from that individual. And even if they come in and they're, complaining of, grumping this, grumping that, it's okay to excuse yourself. Excuse me, I've got to go to the bathroom, and then I have, a meeting, or I've got to meet with the next person. It's also okay to, it's okay to say to them, I understand that you're having a bad day, but I'm not going to participate in that bad day with you because I'm having a good day and I want to continue to have a good day. It's okay to do that, not in a snarky, rude way, but just in a polite, professional way. It's okay to not linger around in that energy and get yourself caught up in that, what we like to call at our job, the trauma drama. It's okay to remove yourself. Not my monkey, not my circus, not my bubble. Those are some things we use to remind ourselves. The key in all of that is to try and keep yourself in a conscious state of awareness. What am I practicing? What are my habits? And what am I letting go on that I don't have to let go on?
Well, that falls back on the what you think about, you bring about.
Yeah.
And if you come into work and you're mad because your negotiations prior to working, are you accepting this job was a little weak because you devalued yourself? You can't get mad at the job.
Right.
Because you get mad, you're going to create that negative energy.
Yeah.
And guess what? It's going to come right back to you.
Right.
And so staying aware of who you are and what you're putting out is very important in finding that happiness in your job.
Right. I think also remembering as you practice it, it is a practice technique.
Yes.
A lot of us, it took us 20, 40, 30, 10 years to get where we are. And it's because we practiced a certain habit of being and existing, coexisting in our reality. And I think the new upcoming perspective, and it's catching on.
It is.
Like wildfire, is being in a state of awareness on a continuous basis and practicing a new way of life with new techniques.
Yep.
And catching yourself when you're going back to those old habits.
Yes.
Of just letting things happen, or not removing yourself from a situation. Or, I'll give you another example that makes us weird is I am very sensitive to the energies. And if we go into a restaurant and there is weird energy that I cannot get to a place in my being where I can sit there and enjoy my meal, we will get up and we will leave the restaurant and go pick another one. And
we have
even
done
if
that many times.
Yeah, even if we go ahead and order drinks and then I sit there and
we'll
I
just leave money on the table and walk out.
I can't get there. And if I can't, because even, coexisting with the relationship between food, if you are in an environment that you can't acclimate to, then your food's not going to be as tasty. Your experience is not going to be as tasty.
And your vessel's not going to use it for its greatest good.
That's right. Yeah. And so we've even walked out of restaurants just because the energy was funky and I couldn't get myself to a place of coexisting with the weird energy that was going on. And we would just go pick another restaurant. It's getting to a place where that doesn't embarrass you.
Yep.
Or not wanting to make a scene, or, caring too much about what the other humans around you are going to think, it will trip you up. And you'll sit there, if you get tripped up in all of those thoughts I just put out there, you'll sit there in that booth or at that table and you'll go ahead and eat, but it'll be a miserable experience, or definitely an uncomfortable one, because you were too embarrassed to get up, or you didn't want to cause a scene, or whatever story you're telling yourself, instead of just going ahead and saying, you know what, the most important thing right now is that I feel good inside of my body and I'm at a place where I can coexist with myself and nothing else matters. And that if that means I got to get up and leave that restaurant and go pick another one, that's what I care about.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And because what I have discovered over the years is when you put yourself in a situation to where you're not liking what you get, it seems it dominoes or it compounds. Like you go into a restaurant that you're not resonating with, they're going to mess up your food.
Yeah.
Or, you're devalue yourself when you go to a job interview and then this job starts becoming uncomfortable. You've got to figure out, what am I going to do? But you're recreating that, and that falls back on the self-awareness.
Yeah.
And I think that is some of the greatest advice that we can give. And I think the last thing that I would touch on for this podcast would be okay with where you are. Because remember, you created it.
Right.
And, excuse me, the hardest part of being in this human vessel on this earth and creating an environment that we live in is accepting what you create and understanding that it's going to change when you accept it fully. And so
my question in that then would be, if you have created a lot of ruckus, how do you be okay? How do you get to the point of being okay where you are? How do you do that?
Well, I
mean, what are some of the ways to do that?
Well, that falls back on the same thing as I try to find that positive energy place, because you're going to get back what you put out. And if you can find that positive energy within it, it's up to us to realize that we've accepted and created where we are and finding the good places in it and recognizing that will recreate more good places.
Yeah, that just still seems very general to me. I'm thinking more along the lines of leaving them with some actual tangible things that they can try and do. For example, stop in the morning and make a list of things that are right in your world, whether it be your work or your personal life. Stop and make yourself recognize the positive things or the good things. Even if you can only come up with one or two things, if you'll do that on a regular basis and that becomes your new habit, you'll find that list grows. And tomorrow you may be able to think of that third thing.
Yep.
And then the next day, that fourth thing. Instead of your focus being on all of the crap that's wrong, change your focus and just try it.
Right.
And focus on finding, okay, yeah, my job is crappy or my home life is crappy, but I like the fact that I get a paycheck, and with that paycheck, I can go and
on a vacation.
Right. Go on a vacation.
Pay all my bills.
Buy a new pair of pants. Buy a new toy.
Create abundance.
Pay my bills easily. We forget about that.
Yeah.
Being grateful and changing that concept right there into a positive. You know what? My check allowed me to be able to pay my bills, and that feels really good.
And buy a couple pairs of shoes.
Instead of looking at it from a standpoint of, I had to use all my paycheck to pay all of my bills, and now I don't have any money left to do anything else.
The stupid job don't pay me enough money.
Right, exactly. Stop and toggle your perspective just a minute and see if you can put a little bit of a positive energy spin on it and practice that as a habit.
Well, and that's part of the hard-hitting part of the spiritual world is I've seen countless times over and over where we create our environment, and the spiritually awakened person gets angry about the environment they've created.
Yeah.
And that's really cliche, because they don't realize that this environment is what they have created. And I think what you just said about making a spiritual to-do list,
yeah,
creating that positive energy off that list, and then tomorrow doing the same thing. Just when you're sitting there, if something resonated with you that made you have that little inkling of good positive feeling, write it down.
Yeah.
And do the same thing.
Yeah, because
the next day.
for the science-minded people out there, there is scientific things that happen in the brain. There is chemical things that happen in the brain. Whenever you begin to find the positive energies, it reroutes pathways, and that's how habits are created as well in the physical body. And so there is scientific data for the scientific mind out there that's trying to understand this and combine those two worlds. So
for a recap on it, I think the major part of coexisting is, especially in the workplace and being accepted for who you are, is number one, accept where you are. You created it. I mean, and that's the hard hitting part of this is too many people won't accept what they've created. That is the true hardest, and that's the hardest hitting part of it.
Right. This is so crappy. I can't believe I created this. There's no way I did. I'm just unlucky.
Yeah. Or I did, or somebody is doing this to me.
Yeah.
And the reality is it's your universe. It's your bubble, as we call it. And you created it. And if you cannot accept that, then it's going to continue to struggle.
Yeah.
Because you'll never change it until you recognize that you created it.
Right.
And find the positives in it. Make your spiritual to-do list. Accept who you are and where you are. And remember to always stop for a minute and take that 5 minutes of time and make everything okay within you. And what you'll learn is, and this is really, to me, lately come in, if you can do those things, you're going to start coming across more people in your job and in your life that are just like you.
Yeah.
Used to be you never met anybody.
Right.
And now it's like every third or fourth person's like, oh, okay. It's like they start resonating with you. The energy is different and it's starting to change. And that's where we hope that this podcast that we are creating can help and to further that, finding people that are like us.
Right, right. Which is something that I, as Dr. Jenni, helps people do.
Yeah.
And I have appointments available.
Dr. Jenni is the founder of a center called the Merck Centers here in Florida. It stands for, just so you know, Merck stands for Metaphysical Education, Research, Coaching, and Counseling Centers. And website's coming. We're still developing it. And I'll put it out on the next podcast, or I'll put it down in the subscription below you where you can call if you like. She's also a certified holistic life coach and a hypnotist in the state of Florida. We're based out of Brandon, Florida. So if you're interested in any one-on-ones or any hypnosis or any spiritual holistic life coaching, do not hesitate to call. We'll either put it on the next podcast or we will, I'll put it in the subscription or the stuff down below.
Was that a word?
Yeah, that's one of my own words. I told you I'm making up my own words today.
How about description? Does that work better?
That's it. Description. I said prescription, didn't I?
You did. Wow. It can feel like a prescription.
Well, where I was going with that is I was going to say the prescription for today's coexistence is to remember, accept where you are, be positive, find that place of solace. And remember, this universe and this environment and this bubble you have created.
And have control of.
So make that spiritual to-do list every day. And find a little positive thing in every day.
Yeah.
Create it if you have to.
Change in habits.
I remember one time I had a employment that I did not like. And what I did one day was I would stop by and I got a bag of Hershey's Kisses on my way to work. And I put those kisses in my pocket and somebody kept saying, hey, would you give me a kiss? And it created that positive moment to where I started going around asking people, hey, do you mind if I kiss you? And it became a positive environment for me.
I feel like that could be HR, though, if you're not careful.
Yeah, it could be. I'm not saying do that now because that was back in the early 90s. And so I wouldn't do it nowadays. You'll be on an HR interview real quick. But anyway, thank you today for listening. And thank you for being involved in this podcast with us. And Jenni and I will be back next week. We plan on putting at least one podcast out a week. What do you think, Jenni?
Yep, I'm all for it.
And so, thank you very much for being here today and listening. And remember, you created this world. You've created this environment.
You might as well create it the way you want it.
That's right. Make it the way you want it.